Good Monday afternoon, and thank you for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Rena Sargentopoulos. In just a few hours, several people will gather in Minneapolis to support the Somali and Afghan communities. This comes 1 week after intense ICE raids began targeting those groups. And this afternoon, it is leaving at least 2 Burnsville families at a loss. Here's Audrey Russo.
The family that owns the Burnsville house raided by ICE says 4 people were detained. 1 had a work permit and is talking with a lawyer. They claim ICE entered the house without a judicial warrant. Now, we reached out to the Department of Homeland Security on that, and we're waiting to hear back. Now, you can see in the Ring camera footage the moment the father of a 7-year-old was detained. We're told he is the one with the work permit. The 7-year-old's mother was also arrested. 2 other men were also detained, one of whom has 2 children and a pregnant wife. The family that owns the house said they had to prove that they were U.S. citizens.
They all were scary, crying, and knowing what's happened, they were pointing with the guns.
Now, the city of Burnsville put out a statement saying Burnsville police do not engage in federal immigration enforcement and are typically not notified of federal operations.
This afternoon, several community organizations are holding a press conference to talk about the conduct of St. Paul police during an ICE raid 2 weeks ago. This is the scene outside the home on Rose Avenue. It was chaotic with protesters clashing with agents and police. Officers used chemical irritants on the crowd, you can see there. The Department of Homeland Security says a man who is here illegally and involved in a domestic abuse case was arrested. Mayor Melvin Carter also ordered a thorough review on the conduct of St. Paul police as well. Well, new details this afternoon following an early morning fire at a Fridley assisted living facility that is located off of East River Road near the Mississippi River. The fire started around 5 o'clock this morning. The fire chief says when they got to the scene, residents were already evacuating. Authorities tell us the fire was contained to 1 room. They were able to put it out and get the majority of residents back into the building and to their homes. Some residents were taken to the hospital as a precaution. The cause of that fire is under investigation. We are also expecting to learn more after officials say a fire heavily damaged a mosque in Prior Lake overnight. For hours, crews worked to put out those hot spots at the mosque after it caught fire just after 2 o'clock in the morning. You can see heavy smoke coming from the roof. Authorities say nobody was in the building at the time of the fire. The cause is under investigation. Today, students at a Superior, Wisconsin middle school are learning from home after a man shot at a police officer, drove through the front of the school and barricaded himself inside. Happened just before 3 yesterday morning across from the border from Duluth. Police say it started after they pulled a van over in connection to a domestic dispute. They say the driver got out and shot a semi-automatic rifle, hitting an officer. That officer and another returned fire, hitting the suspect. That's when he fled and crashed into the middle school, barricading himself in a room for 4 hours before police finally arrested him. The Superior mayor says the officer's bravery saved lives.
This community is safe because officers were willing to take a bullet for the people of Superior. I will always be grateful for that.
Both the officer and the suspect are out of the hospital. Wisconsin's Department of Justice is investigating that shooting. In a matter of hours, the Robbinsdale School Board will hold a special study session on how to move forward with debt in the next school year. Several schools are in danger of closing because of ongoing financial issues with the district. Late last month, the school board presented its plan to the Robbinsdale City Council, citing the need to more efficiently use school space within the district. And after today's session, a facility closure vote will be held next Monday. Well, now more than ever, it seems property taxes are becoming untenable for a lot of people. And for that reason, there are folks pushing to find alternatives for funding cities instead of just sticking it to the homeowners and the businesses. Ken Erdahl found one of them in Minneapolis.
If you're a Minneapolis homeowner who feels snowed under by property tax increases, you're not alone.
I know a member of the Board of Estimate and Taxation who moved out of their house because, in part because of the property tax burden, and became a renter.
Board President Steve Brandt says Minneapolis property taxes currently account for 48% of city revenue, ranking highest among 10 peer cities. And that could rise even more to 57% of revenue in just 6 years, according to a new report.
I think we need to do something. I don't have the power to change it. I'm trying to get it on people's plates so that we can consider whether there's a better way.
In a new op-ed in the Star Tribune, he suggests studying 3 options, including a city income tax for the highest earners, with one big caveat.
We have to study carefully what's happened elsewhere when an income tax has been instituted to see if what the impact is on whether people leave the city. I'm cognizant that that could be a downside.
He says another alternative is to add a city-specific real estate transfer tax.
Right now, you pay it to the state, you pay it to the county, you don't pay it to the city, and why not?
Is that something the city can control, or
No.
does that have to go to the legislature?
Most of what we're seeking to change, or the possibilities that have been raised in this study, would require legislative approval.
Instead of going to the Capitol, he says the city could also try to convince tax-exempt property owners, like nonprofit hospitals or universities, to make voluntary payments in return for the city services they receive.
One way that Boston has found to have people in that situation pay is to publish whether they pay or not.
So it's technically elective, but there's a little public shame involved?
Yeah, absolutely.
He admits every possible answer has its trade-offs, including the most obvious one he can't control.
A lot of the people who have read the article have suggested the city cut spending. That's the city council's job. It's not the Board of Estimates' job. I support a careful look at that. I also invite people who have that point of view to tell me what city services would they cut.
The big drop in commercial real estate values is a big reason why residential property taxes are rising. And Steve says it's not just a problem in Minneapolis. It's why he's hoping the legislature will consider giving cities more flexibility. But he says it's not likely to happen this session because it's not a budget year. Well, this afternoon, President Trump is planning to announce a $12 billion farm aid package. Officials say most of the aid, $11 billion, will go to crop farmers through one-time payments. The rest will be directed to farmers whose crops are not covered by the assistance program. This relief comes as the trade between China and the U.S. that has put a lot of pressure on local farmers begins to show some signs of easing. And new this afternoon, President Trump expected to sign an executive order blocking states from creating their own AI regulations. He posted to social media just hours ago saying, quote, "There must be only one rule book if we are going to continue to lead in AI." Some states have already passed laws addressing potential risky or harmful uses of the tech, following reports of instances where AI may have contributed to self-harm or exposed children to adult material. While leaders in the Silicon Valley say regulations could impede innovation in the field, critics say deregulation could lead to companies evading accountability. Another big shakeup this afternoon. Paramount is now launching a hostile takeover bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. Paramount's CEO says he believes WBD shareholders will be more inclined to take his deal over the deal Netflix offered on Friday. Netflix proposed nearly $28 per share for the half of the company that makes up Warner Brothers and HBO. Now Paramount is offering $30 per share for the entire company, which also includes CNN. Today, a significant earthquake hitting Japan just hours ago. A 7.6 magnitude earthquake struck off northern Japan around 11 p.m. local time and 8 o'clock our time. It triggered a tsunami about 1.5 feet tall, and people in coastal areas were urged to get to higher ground. Japan's prime minister says an emergency task force has been set up to assess that damage. The Japanese Meteorological Agency issued an alert for potential tsunami surges that could reach up to 10 feet in some areas. In the upcoming weeks, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to meet with President Trump in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, Netanyahu announcing Israel plans to move on with the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire. And Hamas says it is ready to lay down its arms. NBC's Matt Bradley has more from Tel Aviv.
Well, we heard from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying over the weekend that he does believe that he's going to be meeting with President Trump, he said, sometime around the end of the month. The White House said that there are plans for the president and Netanyahu to meet. Now, the idea is, according to Netanyahu, that they would be discussing the second phase of President Trump's ceasefire deal, that 20-point plan that President Trump has described as a peace plan, but would encompass all of the Middle East. But Prime Minister Netanyahu, in his comments over the weekend, cast doubt on prospects for an international stabilization force that would pick up the security end of the operations in the Gaza Strip that are currently being done by the Israelis on their side, past the so-called yellow line, to which the Israelis withdrew as part of that first phase, and Hamas, which is still very much operating in the Hamas-controlled territory inside the yellow line. There have been no real breakthroughs in negotiations to populate this international security force. The idea would be with Muslim and Arab countries, their militaries participating in this security force. So far, no countries have really stepped forward to say that they're going to be doing it. Meanwhile, it looks as though, according to Prime Minister Netanyahu, the first phase appears to be winding up. There is only one more dead body of a hostage left inside the Gaza Strip after 20 living and 26 dead hostages have been handed over from Gaza to Israel. But whether or not this continues, whether it moves on to the second phase, is going to rely a lot more on these continued and so far frustrated negotiations to create some sort of day after plan in the Gaza Strip. Matt Bradley, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.